To go to the newly endorsed Nationals leader, David Littleproud. He's standing by in our Canberra studio for us. David, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations. What are you going to do first?
And take a deep breath. We'll see what happens today with the Liberal leadership. And then obviously we'll sit down, we'll review our position on much of our policy and then work through with the Liberal Party about their new leadership team and methodically get to a position where we need to focus on the Australian people rather than ourselves. And, you know, we've got to look with reflection about what happened and be honest and brutal about that because it was a brutal result. You can't run away from that and then make sure that we put the structure and strategy around getting better and that's about focusing on the Australian people. It
was a brutal result, but you retained pretty much all your seats and I think your party room recognised that ultimately yesterday when you were re-endorsed as leader. But when you say you take responsibility, I assume you're talking as part of the coalition team. Is part of that also, David, recognising that as you speak to your regional and country constituents and you share a policy platform with the Liberals, do you acknowledge how difficult it is for them to speak the same language and the same policy platform to the cities and win back those seats?
Oh, totally. And I think what I'm proud of is that the National Party, or me, weren't on any of the Labor attack material that was sent out into any city seats. The National Party and me as leader didn't appear on any of that. Means that we weren't a drag on the Liberal vote. What we did was create that environment for the Liberal Party to be able to prosecute their case within those metropolitan seats. And that's, I think, one of the big things that if Nationals can achieve that, then they've done a fair portion of their job. And we've been able to uphold our vote and return all our members of Parliament back and nearly pull off a miracle in Bendigo, I think shows that the Nationals were mature in the last 3 years. We pushed the envelope in some policy areas, but not to the extent that I think was a drag on the vote. I think we've got to be honest about that, and I think many of those that were sitting that lost their seats or even won it would say that the Nats didn't appear in any of the attack material from the Labor Party during the campaign, which I think is a reflection on the way that we ran our campaign in a professional way and made sure that we articulated our vision in the seats that we were running in.
Yeah, you weren't on any of the campaign material, but did you accept the nuclear debate was a bit of a drag on the Liberal vote in the cities, not because of the safety aspect, but because of how Labor prosecuted the cost of it?
Yeah, and I think that's the only negative that you could say about nuclear energy. There's that people had doubt about the lie that Anthony Albanese prosecuted. He prosecuted off the premise of a report from the Smart Energy Council, an organisation that represents renewable companies that have a vested financial interest in an all renewables approach and in fact donated money to the Labor Party. He was able to predicate a lie on that. Now, he out politicised us on that. You've got to be honest about that. But I don't think it was the biggest thing. I think work from home was the biggest mistake. And we gave a lot of women and young families, not just women, I think young families, we gave them the reason not to vote for us, and that's, I think, the main reason why they didn't put a 1 in the coalition box and they held their nose and put a 1 next to Anthony Albanese's name. I don't think that, along with some other issues that I think Labor were also agile enough to tap into, but I think that primarily was the biggest reason. And we've got to learn and reflect on that and understand you can't alienate sectors of the population, particularly young families and women who are an important part of the electorate and the economy, more importantly.
Yeah, and when we talk about younger voters in particular, I mean, whichever two ways you look at it, the Liberals, the coalition more broadly, needs to get more of those younger voters. Only around 20% of younger voters under 44 were putting number one next to a coalition, and Nats or Liberal candidate in those seats. That is an existential problem for you, David. And I say this talking about the net zero and the debate now that has re-erupted within the Nationals and in the Liberal Party as well. Where do you go with this? Because that is further alienating those younger voters, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, we're going to work through that calmly and look at, firstly, the political lens and the policy lens. What we were able to put forward is a policy about a mixed grid, and it should come back to economics as well. And I think that's what we're missing. And this is where the fundamentals is going to catch up with whoever was in government. If you go down an all renewables approach, it's not going to work. You can't run a country of the industrial scale the size of Australia on all renewables. At some point, there's going to be a big question about how we fix this. And so what we need to do is work calmly through this. I think we were calm in working through this previously. Yesterday was a ballot on the leadership, not on policy position, but what we look at straight after an election is all our policies, whether that be our energy system right through the offering that we gave. And
so how are you going to decide this one?
Methodically through it.
Yeah, so you're going to have meetings of the National Party Room, of course. Will it be a clear vote on whether you dump net zero, or how are you going to deal with it?
Well, that's how we work. I can't speak for other political parties, but the party that I lead draws on the collective wisdom of the entire room, not the political leader. And in fact, when we signed up to net zero under Barnaby Joyce, he ran, I think, one of probably the best processes we've had in the National Party since I've been here, whereby he drew on the collective wisdom, and we walked through the issue, the pros and cons, and we got to a position not everyone was happy with, but one that was one that we all agreed on was one that we would adopt. And that's the process that the National Party works through, not through a unilateral decision by a leader. And I don't think that's healthy. I think it's better to draw on that wisdom. And we'll work through not just that, but all our policies and be able to run the ruler over. And I think you've got to look through that through the policy lens and the political lens as well. And there's some pretty raw data there, not just in National Party seats, but I think across the country that we have to overlay and look through the context of in making these decisions moving forward.
And who do you want to be Liberal leader today?
Look, I don't give gratuitous advice on that, Laura. If that was given to the National Party, we'd tell them to take a running jump very quickly. But whoever it is, obviously we'll sit down at some point and work through the issues and what it looks like moving forward. We'll be upfront and honest. That's how the Nationals operate. You'd never die wondering about what the Nationals think, if nothing else. But we'll be constructive. I think what the Australian people want is, after today, is that the focus isn't on ourselves but on them.
David Littleproud, always good to talk to you. We'll check in soon.
Thanks for having me.